All right. Good stuff. Well, we will definitely end on time today because I don't know about all of you, but I would like to go see our new president sworn in at 10 o'clock, like right as our class is done. So I'm hoping you all can also sneak that in between me and double reads if I make sure to let you go on time. I'm hoping they're on time and he's actually sworn in and our new vice president as well, right at about 10 o'clock our time. So I hope that you are watching some of that today or will watch it later. I know you're in a marathon of classes here this morning, but it's regardless of how you feel about the past 4 years, it's just a really exciting thing to see that process take place, I think, in our country, and is a pretty cool thing. So. All right, we are going to start. Hey, by the way, how is my volume? Am I super loud or am I okay? I'm okay. All right, I got a new microphone and I'm still testing kind of volume levels on that. So if I should adjust, please let me know. I would like us to first look over and hello to Melody. Yes, go ahead.
How do you open these stools? I feel really stupid, but for the past like 5 minutes, I've been moving this thing around trying to open it, and I'm stuck here.
So, Melody, if you should be able to push the feet apart from each other. And I can't totally see from your camera. Are you able to get okay, so the feet are apart. Okay, good, good, good. So that's step one. So now leave the okay, so if this is the curve, yes, what your left hand is on right now, that's what this is. Okay. Leave the seat up against that. Leave the seat up against that and slide it up. Does that make sense? Just and now it should flop. There you go. No, if you've never seen it or done it before, it is confusing. I totally get it. And so now you should, if you want to adjust that seat up or down, you just always need to fold it back up so that it's parallel to the back rungs. So make it parallel to the rungs, slide it up and down, and then flop the seat down so that it can be at the height you want. She's good now. All right. Cool. I want to jump to this instrument checklist that we had to fly through last time, and it sounds like a lot of you were able to kind of look over your instruments. Oh, by the way, since you already have wait, sharing screen, go away. There we go. Since so many of you already have instruments out, which is fantastic, but I just want to review quickly on these low string instruments, the safest way to get it out of the case. So you all have soft cases for your instruments, right? They do make hard cases for cellos and basses, but most common in school programs, of course, are soft because they're cheaper and they're less bulky. The danger with soft cases is your bow. So anytime you're unpacking, take your bow out first. Take your bow out first and set it to the side somewhere safe, and then get the bag off of the instrument and get the instrument out of its case. It is all too common that a student gets their cello out, leaves the bow in the case, and then throws the case to the side, or even like tries to fold the case in half to set it somewhere, and the bow is still in there, and now the bow can be cracked. So we want to pull the bow out first, set it somewhere safe, then get the cello or bass out, and when you're packing up, do the reverse. So put the instrument away first, and then put the bow back in. And I'll try to remind you of that at the end. Katie, that also makes me think we should also pay attention to your case. If the next time you get your bow out, that has happened again, where all those hairs are loose, there might be something in the bow pouch that is grabbing those hairs. There might be something sharp or something in there that those hairs are getting caught on. So we can think about that too if that problem continues.
Okay, it's in the other room right now, so I'll look later.
Sounds good. And you may or may not be able to see it, like with your eyes, but just if every time you pull your bow out, the hairs are falling off, it might be a case issue. So just something to keep in mind. Cool. Let me share my screen for hopefully just a moment, because again, it sounds like many of you did a good job of looking over this already. This string instrument checklist. And I don't know if you'll still be able to see me or not as I fix my screens here, but I am going to kind of hold up my instrument and point to a couple things as we go along just to be sure that you're good. I hope that it made sense. The stuff in parentheses are some of the problems, the common problems that you might see. So your pegs, you may or may not have felt comfortable, turning those pegs and yanking on them. Eventually, you will feel comfortable with that, but maybe not here on day one. If you notice that they're sticking or slipping a lot, there are things we can do to try to help with that. Your strings, looking in the peg box and making sure that they are wound next to each other, that they're not crisscrossing over each other. The string itself, like your A string, should not be crisscrossing over itself the way that it is wound around the peg. And of course, also different strings, like your A and D, should not be tangled together or crisscrossing over each other. So making sure that your pegs are wound correctly that your strings are wound correctly around those pegs. Making sure that you don't see anything frayed anywhere. The nut, that was one we talked about in class last time because not everybody remembered that name, right? Right at the top of the fingerboard where the strings connect. Sometimes those grooves get worn down really, really far. So trying to make sure that your string is not digging way into the fingerboard up there. I'll finish just kind of running through these. And then if you have questions, of course, we can go back and clarify things. The fingerboard, if it's really old, it may literally have grooves from where people's fingers have been. So watching that. And also, again, if you can see me, just kind of gently holding on to each side of the fingerboard, or if you're on cello or bass, maybe just pick one side at a time and push. Kind of wiggle back and forth from left to right on the instrument. Does the fingerboard move at all? Or is it nice and secure? It should be nice and secure, but the fingerboard can come loose from the neck. So making sure that that's not moving around at all. Your bridge, you can kind of, and again, I know it's hard on your low string instruments, but trying to look at the bridge kind of this way. Is it standing straight up, or is it leaning big time towards the scroll or towards the tailpiece? Is it really warped, or is it fairly straight like it should be? The sound post inside the instrument, we talked about that one a bunch last time, so hopefully you can look inside and see that dowel rod standing up in there. If you can't find a dowel rod, that's a scary sign. Yeah, Katie, go for it.
So my bridge is leaning towards the scroll a little bit. How big of a problem is that?
Let's see if at the end of class, whether we can get your bass and camera to be at an angle where I can kind of see. It's probably fine. But if we're able to work that out where I can kind of take a peek at it, we'll make sure.
Yeah, like you can see a tiny little gap on the bottom side.
Okay. So less than ideal if you're seeing a gap between the feet and the face. That's less than ideal. So we'll see if maybe at the end of class if I can get a peek at it. Okay. All right, good eyes. Open seams. The easiest way to check, and what we mean by an open seam is where the ribs of the instrument on the side meet the back and the front. Okay, so where the side of the instrument and the top and the back connect, that is glued together there, and that glue can come apart, and it's actually designed to come apart because if it comes apart, hopefully the rest of the wood has not exploded, right? It's like a release valve. It can come apart so that the rest of the wood stays safe. The easiest way to check for that is knocking around the sides of your instrument all the way around the front and the back. You have to knock pretty hard. Don't be scared. Okay? You can knock pretty hard. And if you find an open seam, you will hear a distinct difference. And I'm sorry I don't have one to show you here today. Maybe Katie does though. Your face.
So I'm not exactly sure how to show you what's happening right now.
Is there just a giant open seam?
Can you see this?
Kind of. Am I? Yes, on the front, the giant open seam. Yes. So Kate.
So that's what that looks like, I guess. It's not. You can't see the inside of the instrument.
Okay, so Katie, would you do us a favor and just knock on that open seam and then knock around the edge to where it's not open anymore to try and help people hear the difference in that wood smacking against itself and then where it's not anymore?
Okay. right next to the open seam.
So, Katie, if you actually knock on the face of the instrument, knock on the front part of the instrument.
Okay. It's not really moving that much, so it's not like it's
Okay.
so.
But
Okay, so the face split. So
so we should maybe just try to get you a new bass, Katie. We should talk with Ron and see. And see, this is I'm not at all trying to speak ill of Ron, but this is why I was pretty sure we weren't using the basses that were in those lockers anymore, because we had a lot of this going on. So I will, after class, I will send Ron an email and copy you and see whether it would be possible to switch you out for a different instrument the next time you're back to Greeley, because that one sounds like it's just a hot mess.
it kind of is, but it's kind of like a vibe. I knew that he didn't want me to take, like, because I'm not on campus and I have to, like, keep it for half the semester. I knew he didn't want me to take one of the really expensive ones, which I understand, but
So I talked to Kyle when I got this rented out, and now they're saying they don't care if we take these ones home. Originally, he was saying, no, don't take them home. But now Ron is like, oh, yeah, I guess you guys can take them home.
okay, now I'm a little mad.
Thank you. Thank you,
got
Melanie.
I got one from 204. So, and I think I was the second person to get it. I think you were the first, Katie, and I was the second
I
person
think
because
that's why is because I was the first one to ask him if, like, hey, can I have a bass to take home? He was like, I don't know about that.
yeah, they said, "Are you in the same class as Katie Mosley? You also need a bass?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Well, I guess you can take one of the ones from 204 this
Dude.
time." So,
I think he just maybe didn't look carefully at my list or didn't realize how many folks were going to be on base. And I tried to make that clear, but maybe not clear enough. So thank you, Melody and Dee Dee, for the updates. And we'll see if we can just get Katie an instrument that's maybe a little less special. All right. Katie gave us a great example of sometimes your open seams are just gaping and there's no doubt that it's open. Other times you will only hear it. You can't really see anything. You'll just hear as you're knocking. Oh, there's a change in pitch there. I can hear wood slapping against itself. Something is different. Yeah, Katie.
Hey, guess what? I have another one.
All right. Other times you have open cracks on the instrument, on the face or the back. In addition to other places, there could be open cracks you might want to watch for. And then I left a space for cosmetic concerns, because that might be something that you want to note. Just if you have an instrument with a lot of cosmetic concerns, maybe it's the last one you give out so that as many students as possible feel like they have a really nice instrument and not one that is a little bit beat up. The last of this list, I'm both happy and sad that we've had examples of some of these things already. So when you're looking at the bow, making sure that the stick is not super warped. Sometimes if you look down the stick, this way, where it's coming out from your face, you can see that there is warp to the bow, that it is turning one direction or another. Sometimes you might see a little bit of warp. That's not a big deal. But if there's like a curve to your bow, that of course is a problem. If the bow hair won't tighten, or if it's super duper dirty, we very regularly get dirt buildup down by the frog because most of us, our thumb touches a little bit of the hair down there. But if it's super dirty, then we need to do something about that. If the bow grip or wrapping here is loose or is sliding around, the frog, if it's cracked or the screw won't work anymore, if the screw is stripped and it's not going to go in or out. And then another really common one with kids is looking up here at the tip, basically right here, like where the straight, sorry, if I turn maybe this way, you can kind of see where the straight part of the bow is actually going to start. The curve stops and the straight part of the bow starts. Very often you'll find a crack there because kids love to hit their bows on things, on their stand, on their stand partner, sword fights, all kinds of things. And that's one of the most common places to crack, is right up there at the top of the tip. And then a couple other reminders to look at the case and check out, make sure your kids got all the supplies they need and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of super speed. Questions about anything you're seeing on your instrument or anything else on that checklist? Yeah, Dee Dee.
If the strings aren't wound properly, do I care about that?
You're on bass, right?
Yeah.
So no. Okay. So hopefully you all remember the cello has tension pegs, just like violin and viola, where it's purely tension that is holding things together in the pegs there. The basses have machine pegs that are literally, you know, a metal machine up there at the top. The amount of time and effort that it takes to restring a bass, the number of times you have to turn that peg to get that string loose and to be able to fix that. You heard my answer to Dee Dee there. We're just not going to mess with it. I hate that it was not wound correctly the first time, but at this point we won't mess with it. Maybe when you turn it in at the end of the semester I'll try to fix it, but you don't need to worry about it. You'll give yourself carpal tunnel. Almost literally. My wrists ache after I have to do that on a bass. So. Other questions? Not at the moment. Cool. Oh yes, Audrey.
I was just gonna let you know that I'll probably have my cello by Wednesday. I tried to go this morning, today is Wednesday. Monday.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know, and thank you for working on it. I know that can sometimes be a little bit of a juggling act and challenge. So, and I think also Mario doesn't have his, and I think Lucas doesn't have an instrument yet either. So for those of you who don't have them yet, thank you for being here, and hopefully you're just absorbing what we're talking about, and you guys can keep moving forward. I should say just a word or two about, so Cassie is going to end up on violin this half of the semester. I think everything we've talked about so far applies to all instruments. The only thing, Cassie, that would be different for you is when you're unpacking. I talked with all of them about taking the bow out first. For violins, violas, I just remind them, make sure the case is sitting on a flat surface, either on the floor or on a table or something like that, or on, a bed, like mine is back there, but making sure your case is on a flat surface so that you can open it safely and get the instrument out and not worry about it spilling out all over the place there. All right, up next. And thank you, Mario. Sorry, my chat window was hiding on me there. So I will check out your fine tuners as well while I'm working on that string for sure.
Okay, cool. Also, I feel like Ron hadn't taken a look at it yet because I found the string in the bag, one of the pockets, and it was tied together with the tension, one of the tension thingies.
Okay, so I will just check out that cello and see what's going on, and and if there are worse things at play, I will email both you and Ron. I'll email you regardless to say, hey, I'm done with it, or I will email you and Ron and say, hey, we need to get Mario a new cello. So you'll hear from me later today one way or another.
Thank you.
All right, we've got instruments out. We have instruments relatively in working condition. And most of you already have the instrument kind of against your body, which is fantastic. Today, I'm not going to freak out about camera angle. Many of you have already started to recognize on these larger instruments, this is a really tricky thing of just how do I try to fit in that zoom window. So I'm not freaking out about it today, but start to pay attention to that of, can Dr. Fulcher see both my right and left hand? Or how am I going to make this work? Okay. Last semester in String Tech, I don't think we did a lot of TOPS. I didn't use that acronym very much. Did I? TOPS? TOPS? I didn't think so. I kind of moved away from it last semester. I'd like to use it with you and see it might resonate with some of you. T stands for triangle. And this is to help us figure out how to set up the instrument. Okay, so T stands for triangle. Cellos, your triangle is your 2 feet and your end pin. So on the floor, your 2 feet and your end pin should make a pretty equilateral triangle on the floor. And hopefully you're sitting towards the front of your chair, if humanly possible, depending what kind of chair you're in. Okay? Basses, your triangle can be either your 2 feet and end pin if you're standing, like Katie. If you're sitting on a stool, your triangle is probably end pin, right foot, and stool. Because most of the time, if we're on a stool, we have our left foot up on a rung of the stool, and the bass can kind of lean against that left leg a little bit. Okay, so triangle is for T, and for my violin, for Cassie, your triangle is your 2 feet and the front right corner of your chair. So if you actually angle yourself on your chair a little bit so that it's your 2 feet and the front right corner of your chair. Okay. O stands for out. Cellists, if you will just hold your cello about an arm's length in front of you. So if it's standing up on its end pin, it should be standing straight up and down about an arm width in front of your body. And basses as well. If your bass is standing straight up and down on its end pin, it should be about an arm's length in front of your body. And this is out. O, out for all of you. For Cassie, out is we're going to put our hand on our upper bout, our left hand on our upper bout, and just hold our instrument out, up above our head. So my hand is above my head for out on the violin. Okay. Cellists, while your cello is out in front of your body and you're not going to hit yourself in the head, would you please rock back on your bottom, lift your feet up, you've rocked back, and then plop your feet on the floor. And so you rock your feet back, you're rocking onto your bottom, and then plop your feet onto the floor. The goal of that is to make sure you're not leaning more on one butt cheek than the other, that you're nicely balanced on your chair. And again, we do that while the cello is out so that we don't hit our head on the scroll as we're moving around. The cello's hanging out here. I can just rock back and forward, and hopefully that works pretty well. All right, you're all out. Now P stands for pull. We're going to pull the instrument into our body. So cellists, bring it back so that your fingerboard is above your left shoulder. Looking good. Ideally, cellists, your C peg, your lower peg, your C peg, should be right at about your left ear. Okay, so if that C peg is right about your left ear, if you need to try adjusting your end pin length a little bit to make that happen, we want to make sure that your cello has some angle on it. We don't want it to be straight up and down against our body. We want it to have some angle as it comes back into our body. Okay. Basses, when you pull the bass into your body, you might have heard me mention to Katie earlier, if you're standing, for sure, the ideal is that this back upper bout corner, okay, is going to lean between your belly button and your hip bone and find a place to kind of settle in right in there. Of course, it looks really weird with a violin, right? But that's the goal, is for it to settle in kind of between your belly button and hip bone and find a place to relax. If you're sitting on a stool, your bass should still be resting against your chest or upper stomach area, and then is also probably going to be on your left leg. You can let it lean against your left leg. Okay. Both cello and bass, making sure that the instrument is not flat against your body, but is turned just a little bit so that the higher string, which instrument am I on here? Yeah, so that the lower string, so that the lower string comes up into the air a little bit. You're rotating toward your higher string, if that makes sense. So the goal is to be able to reach that low string when you need to get to the low string. Okay. Cassie, I left you hanging up here without. If you put your finger on your end button, flip your instrument upside down and bring it to your shoulder, that's our pull for upper strings. So pulling the instrument into the body like that so that it settles on your shoulder. And then S, strings. So my cellos and basses, basses, use your right hand and just make sure you can reach your strings so that when you're eventually bowing, make sure your hand is eventually going to reach about that area. My cellists, I have them put both hands around the cello and just give it a little bear hug. It seems a little silly, but kids enjoy it, and it literally helps the cello just kind of settle in to your body and hopefully let your body relax a little bit around the cello. And then for Cassie, S, strings, I turn my nose to my strings on my instrument. Okay. That was the super fastest setup ever. Most of you are looking good from what I can see in my screens. Do you have questions so far?
So if I can't reach fully down here, does that mean I need to move everything up?
So yeah, you're good. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. I know it's a challenge. It looks like your hand is right about at the end of the fingerboard, yeah? Mm-hmm. So that's okay. For bass, that'll be good. For bass, that'll be good. Yeah, great question. Great question. Dee Dee, yeah.
Can you just tell me if everything looks okay? Because I'm very conscious of being rather short right now. And just like, do I need to try and like sit higher, or like, is this gonna be good?
What I see at the moment, Dee Dee, looks great. My only concern is it might be a little too cello-ish. Make sure that it is angled, like I was just describing, that it's more the corner of the instrument that's resting on your body, not like the full back that's resting on your body. It's still more the corner, and maybe a little bit of that for melody too. Again, it could just be camera angle stuff, but it's not as much of the back is going to rest on your body as it did on cello. It should be more the corner of the instrument. And a way to maybe kind of test that or get your brain to think about it is to force yourself to stand up every now and then. If you were standing, the instrument would have more, it would be more on its side, more on that corner. You wouldn't play with the instrument flat against your body if you were standing up. You, I think, would pretty naturally know to rotate it. And we want to keep that rotation even when we sit down. But other than that, Dee Dee, and that could be more an angle, camera angle thing. I think you're looking good.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions, folks. Yes, Katie, go for it.
Is this setup okay? Like, for, like, is this okay? Like, I know that you can't see or the.
Yep. But what I can see looks good. Yeah, I think you're good. Could maybe be a smidge taller. But also maybe that could just be a camera angle thing. So again, we can kind of see, especially as you get your fingers on the instrument, if we feel like you need to bring it up just a little bit, I'll be sure to let you know. As you're also figuring out the angle of the instrument and how it's going to connect with your body, that also impacts the height. So we'll give it a little bit of time there, but maybe next time you do the end pen, pull it out just a little bit further, and we'll give that a try. Okay, looking good. Melody, let me say this before I forget it, and then I'll answer your question. I mentioned to cellos, making sure that you have angle on your cello, that it's not straight up and down. Same thing is true for basses. We want to make sure the bass has angle to it, and that's why for all of you, I had you start an arm's width away from your body, because then the instrument has to lean back into your body. If you start with the instrument, like here, and then lean it back, it's barely going to have any angle. But if you start with it an arm width away from you, it should have enough angle as it leans back to conquer all those things. Melody.
So how do you get a good balance if a bass thing? How do you get a good balance of not making the chair too tall, but also getting the bass at the right height? Because when I'm sitting, I'm also short like Dee Dee. When I'm sitting, it's all the way up like here. And I shorten the end pin like as short as it goes, and it's still really high on me.
So I would try raising your stool a little bit. Typically, when you're sitting on a bass stool or adjustable chair, your left leg is going to be on the rung of the stool. So that's one thing, is making sure you're not so high that you can't do that, right? You want your left leg to be comfortable on the rung, and your right foot is probably not going to be flat on the floor. Your foot is probably going to be angled. I don't want you all the way up on your tippy toes, but your foot is probably going to have a little bit of angle and not totally be flat on the floor. And if you try being that high, hopefully then we can get the bass to meet your body. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And all of these things we'll keep playing with, right? It never works out perfectly on day one. If it has for you, give yourself an extra pat on the back. Usually it takes a couple classes for all these things to kind of sink in. Amanda, were you going to say something?
So for standing, what do I do with my feet? I know that sounds like a weird question, but I don't know if I have my feet too far apart. Do I I don't know. I don't know what to do with my feet.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Your right foot should be flat. Hopefully your right foot is flat and comfortable. Usually the left leg is going, yeah, you can't, and I'm in a, like all black, you're not gonna be able to see. Usually your left leg is a bit on tiptoes, or at least angled up. Your heel is not on the floor, so that your leg can be bent and up a little bit, and then the base is gonna be able to lean against that left leg. So typically right leg is flat, left leg is up a little bit so that the base can lean against it, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah, all right. Cool. All right, let's keep moving for the moment. And this is definitely all stuff we will continue to come back to. So actually bringing this left, oh, yep, Dominique.
So where is the cello supposed to be rotated? The lowest string is supposed to be in towards you or out?
Now I did flip my strings. I am sorry, folks. Wow. So I did totally flip that when I said it earlier. Your A string, or G string for basses, is going to be up in the air a little bit. I apologize. And your lower string, so you're rotating. If the instrument is straight on to my body, I am going to rotate to my right. This is my right. So I'm going to rotate to my right, bringing the low string down a little bit and the higher string out a little bit. Did that make sense, Dominique?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. I did totally mess that up a minute ago. Anybody else?
I'm so glad you said that, because it was like digging into my leg, and I'm like, this feels so wrong.
Dominique saved us! Good job. Cool. All right, so left hand. Some of you may find this easier than with your former upper string, and some of you may find it a little more challenging. But we all start from that same principle of being as relaxed as we can with that hand. So just kind of shaking out that left arm and hand a couple times. You may remember checking for rain on your former instrument, which on violin viola is a little more challenging to do, because you also have to, like jazz hands, balance this thing. But for y'all, you're just like, yeah, piece of cake, right? But the motion is still important, right? Relaxing that shoulder, letting this left hand be really relaxed and free is still a really important thing. And then you just bring your hand to the neck and fingerboard of the instrument, okay, just for a very general feeling. Okay, do that one more time. Just make sure that arm is nice and relaxed and loose. And then bringing it to the instrument. Okay. And if I turn my hand up like this to you all, it's a beautiful C, right? So your fingers and thumb are going to make that beautiful C shape, or holding a can of soda, right? However you want to think about it. And that's how we want to come to the instrument. As much as possible, you want your wrist facing the audience. It's not like hardcore, like it doesn't have to be perfectly facing the audience at all times. But some of us will tend to kind of lean like this. And now all of a sudden my wrist is facing the ceiling. And that's not what we want. We want our wrist facing the audience. Okay. Think about leaning down into your fourth finger, leaning down into your third or fourth finger. Think of leaning into those, and that will hopefully help you keep your wrist facing forward. If you start leaning back into your first finger, is where things start to get wonky, right? And you're facing the ceiling. So lean into those weaker fingers. Think about supporting those weaker fingers. And that's how your hand will hopefully go. There's an imaginary line on the back of the neck, right down the middle of the back of the neck. And that line is where your thumb lives. So your thumb should be right in the middle on the back of the neck. And ideally cellos across from second finger, basses across from third finger. Really, the goal is we just want to get that thumb as low as possible. Again, it's supporting the weaker fingers. Usually for cellists, it ends up landing behind second finger. Basses, it ends up landing kind of behind third finger. But just think about keeping that thumb low. It's not across from first anymore like it was on an upper string. It's now behind second or third. Okay? All right, good. Shake out that arm once if you haven't in the last 10 seconds. Just relax that left arm and hand. Okay. And do that again where you bring your hand into your instrument And this time, just let yourself slide, pick a string, and polish that string. Slide up and down, make sure your thumb is sliding. Also, you can slide more than I can with actual low string instruments. Cassie, all of these things work for you too. Apologies, I should also demonstrate this way. And Cassie for you. And once you've polished a little bit, you can relax, my low string friends. Thank you. So Cassie, reminders for you. Your contact points on your instrument are your thumb and the base of your first finger. Okay, so your thumb is here across from your first finger, and I'm at the base of my first finger here, and then my fingers curve over that way. So 2 contact points for those upper strings, and again, that polishing still works the same there for you. Okay, and there goes the shoulder rest. Okay, cool. Questions so far? Still feeling okay-ish? Yes, yes. Thank you for the thumbs ups. I appreciate those. All right. Cellos, basses, you probably remember hearing me say in string tech to folks to keep their arm and their elbow up. Okay. If you watch videos of professional cellists and bassists, their arms are not perfectly up here, right? I actually I like can't show videos of Yo-Yo Ma in class, like one of the best cellists in the world, right? But I like don't show videos of him because his arm is always down here like this. So when you watch professionals, it's the old adage of they knew the rules, so then they could break them, right? And when you're as good as Yo-Yo Ma, you can do whatever you want. However, when you're starting cello and bass, we want to keep this arm up, because if it goes down, for most young and beginning students, if it goes down, it's going to bend the wrist, it's going to bend the fingers, you see how it automatically messes up my finger spacing, right? Like my fingers can be beautifully equally spaced like this, and then when I drop, they squish together and I lose that spacing. It makes it harder to shift. Right now, my hand is in the way on the bout of the instrument and I can't shift, and I won't be able to vibrate as nicely, and all kinds of stuff that long term, it's really going to mess up. So I really harp on my beginning cellists and bassists to keep that arm up. And if you start, every time you sit down at your instrument or stand at your instrument, start with it a little higher than is comfortable. So start just a little higher where you can kind of feel it a little in your arm. You're like, oh, that's a little high. And then as you play and you stop really focusing on it, it will relax a little bit and it'll all be fine. But if you don't think about that and you start with it super bent, or I had a bassist in my high school orchestra who he swore that this was a table. He just constantly had his arm on the top of his bass and just swore that this was a table designed for his arm. And I could not break that habit in him. It drove me nuts. So trying to keep your students with their arms up so that they really have freedom of motion and consistency of those finger patterns will be really good. Questions about my random tirade there? Cool. All right, let's see. We're doing good on time. I'm sorry I'm talking so much today, folks. My hope is to go through all this review, and hopefully you also watched a video or two. In a second, we're going to try to actually play something, and then into next week as well. We'll just be able to play more. And once you get some chops on this instrument, we'll also veer more into the pedagogy and teaching side of things. But obviously, you got to be able to play some for us to go to those next steps. I'm going to show you these, but then we're not going to spend much time on them today. We'll come back to them again next week. So in your Week 2 synchronous presentation page on Canvas, the instrument checklist we already did. So this pedagogy sequence overview and then details that are right here. So this is the overview. What's labeled on Canvas is the overview document. And hopefully you could kind of see this modeled in what we did in string tech. And then again, obviously we're going to keep referencing this through this semester. So your right hand, if you're thinking about your bow, the first stage is getting your hand to the bow, and then simple détaché stroke, and then direction changes and refinement of string crossings. That beginning stage, 1 through 4, is basically where we went in string techniques. Right? We were to the point of trying to really refine, can we be on just one string at a time and make sure we do those string crossings appropriately and all that kind of stuff. That's what we got through in string tech. And then beyond that are more, attack strokes, and then just different strokes in general that we can do on the bow and more advanced things. We will get into some of those this semester, but obviously you're on a new instrument. We kind of need to start back at the beginning stage on this particular instrument. And then same kind of deal in left hand, your overall posture, getting the instrument to your body, the hand to the instrument, and then your fingers on the instrument in the correct place. That is all considered the beginning stage, 1 through 4 there, which again is what we did in string tech and where we will start, just like we have today, on this instrument. And then we get to move into shifting and vibrato and more advanced things. The other document takes each of those items and then really, really digs in. So it gives you left hand 1 posture, right? So this is thinking about just your overall posture of your body, general principles of your posture for everybody, and then specific things for each instrument. Okay, and it mentions some of those foot things that we were talking about earlier. Okay, and then it gives you exercises to work on those things. I'm not sure I did any of those in string tech. That's not good. I need to do some more of those this semester. Okay, but it gives you specific activities you can do to work on that. I'll show you one more page and then we'll save the rest to come back to next week. So bringing the instrument to the body. I don't think I said this today, but I know I said it last semester. Making sure you bring the instrument to the body, never the body to the instrument, right? We always want our body to be nice and tall, our spines be tall, our body be healthy, and we bring the instrument to us. Okay? And then there's instrument specific for violin, viola, cello, bass. And then here you see tops that we did today, and then some other ones you've heard of before. Statue of Liberty, Bear Hug we did today, Jazz Hands you did more last semester, and Cassie today. Okay. So those documents are on our Canvas page for you to reference, and particularly as you're starting on this newer instrument to you, I encourage you to go check out those documents, and there may be some things there that are worded differently than how I said it or whatever that might resonate a little better with you. And we will specifically look at a few of those pages as we go through this semester, but I encourage you to save those, stick them in a folder somewhere, because if you end up teaching strings or needing kind of a reference point for strings, those can really help there. And let's see with what time it is. I think, unfortunately, that we should stop there. I was hoping to play a little bit, but I think we should probably stop there. We didn't do tuning at all today. We will do that on Monday. And of course, you know the basics of it. Basses don't have fine tuners, but your machine pegs save you. You can use your pegs with less fear than what you had last semester. So basses can turn their pegs and not be as fearful. Cellists, I encourage you to still try to use the fine tuners for now. And if it's so out that it requires pegs, you can decide whether you feel comfortable doing that, or you and I can find a time to meet on campus and I can help with that. So try to tune and or see how comfortable you are with that before Monday. Okay. And we will pick up there Monday. I should have kept sharing my screen. Apologies. Go back. Let me just show you what's coming on Monday. So this is this week's week 2 overview page. Planning ahead, please attend class on Monday, again with your instrument. Wednesday next week will be asynchronous, so you don't have to show up on Zoom next Wednesday. I'm hoping that you can have the book in time to complete the Chapter 2 reading quiz before Monday's class. It's due Sunday night, okay? And that you can also join our Smart Music class by Monday. So this is the new code that you'll need to put in Smart Music. And as long as you still have your Smart Music subscription, you should be able to just enter a new code to join another class, and it shouldn't give you any trouble with that. So please try that by Monday so that if there are issues, we can start to address those. If you do not have the book in time to be able to do the reading quiz, please send me an email and I will send you a scan of that chapter of the book. Okay? Cool. questions, feel free to hang out for a minute. Katie, if we can try to look at, actually, we're just going to try to get you a new base, yeah? Yes, so I will email Ron and I'll just say, hey, is there any chance Katie could get a new base? And I'll copy you and then we'll see what he says and we'll just try to get you a new one. And then we don't have to worry about that bridge and open seam and everything else.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry for all this. Audrey, yes.
You might have already talked about this, but is this lecture going to be posted somewhere so I can rewatch it when I get my cello?
Yes, it will. So on today's week 2 synchronous presentation, it'll be up later today on there.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. Cool. If you have questions, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, maybe go watch our new president be sworn in. Thank y'all. Have a great day.
So I actually did have a question. If I
Yeah.
keep hitting my head